Hello and welcome to the Property Lifestyle Mastery podcast. I am Jackie Tomes from Property Strategy, and on this show we're having open conversations about building property businesses that create not just cash flow but also freedom from those that have been there and done it. So myself and Dave have gone from startup to over £16 million worth of deals done in under 10 years, and that's great. There's some real highs along the way for that, but there's also been a lot of lows and a lot of lessons. And for us, it's all about the freedom and creating the holiday every 6 weeks lifestyle. And that's what we're talking about on the show. Everything from the big picture strategy for how you do that, how you maximize your human potential, and right down to the practical solutions. And today we are joined by a fellow freedom seeker, Mike Stenhouse from Inside Property Investing. Mike is incredible. He's raised, interesting like us, £6 million of investor finance, so he got a snap on that. And he is like us in terms of freedom to travel being a big motivator for why he invests in property. And he'll be taking us on a whirlwind tour of his property journey. But more importantly, we are going to be doing what is better: travelling around in a motorhome and running your property business, or travelling around in a catamaran. What's better, 4 wheels or 2 hulls? So Dave and Mike are going to be thrashing it out, along with also just the practicalities of running your property business remotely. What can we share? What have we learned to help you to benefit from this in your own business? So a really fun episode. I think you're going to love this. Without further ado, over to Mike Stenhouse with Dave.
Hello, Mike. Awesome to have you on this Property Lifestyle Mastery podcast. How are you today?
I'm excellent. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
We're so excited to have you on. Mike, you've been like an inspiration for so many property investors. I mean, seriously, Inside Property Investing is, for me, that's it. That's the top of the property podcast that there can be. So we're like, for us, it's just like having a little God come down.
Oh, behave. You're too kind. It's I think a lot of it is time served rather than any actual skill or expertise, right? But I think it's a it goes to show that you can just kind of get somewhere through grafting, kind of figuring it out as you go. There's a lot of things about my podcast that I would do differently, but you get stuck in, don't you? And it kind of becomes what it becomes. I'm thrilled with what it has become, but it's just something that, I started recording one day and ended up where we are.
I think that's a nice ergonomic way to go. And I think you basically just described any good business, just go for it, hard graft, and then see where you end up. And if you keep going long enough, you'll end up somewhere good.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway, but thank you so much. You've done an amazing job. I think you push out like 2 or 3 episodes a week.
Yep.
Is that?
I mean, so we started off 3 episodes a week, which was a lot.
Yeah.
Now it's like one every blue moon when I actually have the time or inclination to do it. We go through phases where I have a bit of energy to focus on it. But I mean, over I think it's been like 7 or 8 years now, we're almost at 400 episodes. So it's a decent amount, but it's definitely it ebbs and flows.
Yeah. Oh, well, from all of us in the property investing world, thank you very much for your part in helping us all. But actually, here we are today. The kind of concept for this episode is a bit more off the wall. We wanted this one. It's basically called 2 hulls versus 4 wheels.
I love it.
Theory being that you live, of anyone I know, you live the most similar lifestyle to Jackie and I. Mm-hmm. You've got the freedom, or you've had the freedom for a long time, to go and live on a catamaran, on a boat. And like so many people, this is the dream. I mean, I remember it was my dream at one point. I was like, I'm going to live on a boat like one day. And now I'm living the similar freedom lifestyle of living in a motorhome, mm-hmm. pretty much. And I'm loving it in every single way. And I haven't put down the boat dream, but it's just definitely been delayed because I feel the motorhome is doing it for me. And I just wanted to start this episode by saying, like, you and I and Jackie, Victoria, we hadn't really met anywhere. Well, Jackie had obviously been on your podcast.
Yep.
And we hadn't really met at all in the flesh. And we've been WhatsApping, just kind of talking about various stuff. And then it just turned out that there we were in Croatia. You happened to have docked at Dubrovnik, mm-hmm. and boom, where could we meet up? Anywhere in the world but Dubrovnik, having lunch together. It was one of those unbelievable serendipitous moments. It's just like, wow, this is like it's meant to be. And it was glorious. It was glorious to see you there, but it really brought forth this concept of pure freedom and what does it mean and how do you achieve it? There we are with you on your boat, us on our motorhome in a random country in the world, living life to the fullest. So yeah, I guess that's kind of what this has stemmed from.
Mm-hmm.
What for you? How long were you on the boat for?
So we did 4 years, 4 seasons, if you like. The original plan, we sold our house in the UK, bought the boat, and we were like, we're gone, we're never coming back. That didn't exactly transpire. COVID hit. So over the course of those 4 years, various things like COVID, like us having our first baby, brought us back to the UK. So how it actually panned out was we spent kind of extended summers, usually from April through to about November on the boat. And then we came back to the UK for a couple of months over winter. But that was over the course of 4 years. And then we actually sold the boat almost a year ago now. So towards the end of 22, as our daughter turned 1, we thought she's probably going to fall off this boat soon. So let's go back to land and just kind of preserve life for a little while, and then we'll figure out what comes next.
My God. So 4 years of off and on, but it sounds like more time on, much more time on.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. Yeah.
Why the boat? You had what was that a dream of yours for a long time? What made you do it?
It was a dream of Victoria's, or certainly it was in her family background a lot more than it was mine. She'd grown up sailing. Her dad was a big fan of sailing, usually around the UK. So, very different to the Mediterranean climate. And I think when she got to early teenage years, she was probably like, no, I'd rather stay at home with my friends than go out sailing in the rain. So she kind of fell out of love with it a little bit, but it had always been in her history. She could sail. She knew how to sail. And then we met, various trips out with Victoria's family. Didn't really fall in love with it until we went on holiday and did a sailing course from Gibraltar. And we thought, no, actually, with a bit of sunshine, this is much more fun. So we did that. We then did a charter holiday. The first charter that we did where it was just the two of us on a boat was in Croatia, one of my favorite places in the world. And then we came across YouTubers, in the same way that people come across property podcasts and start investing. We came across sailing vloggers and thought, wait, people live like this. It's not just a holiday. This could be. So we wanted to go traveling. We knew we wanted to go and have some sort of adventure. We had 2 little dogs, so we needed to incorporate them into the plans. Flying all over the world wasn't really going to work, and living in hotels and stuff didn't, the dogs needed to be factored into that. And then, we discovered sailing vloggers, Sailing La Vagabond. For anyone who's kind of into that world, that will be a big name for them. They are the sailing influencer elite, and lots of others. And we just, we were kind of inspired by other people, thinking, oh, well, if they can do it, why can't we? And very quickly, I think within the space of about 12 months, we ordered a boat, we sold our house, and we thought, what's the worst that can happen? Let's go for it.
How much preparation did it take? You say within the space of about 12 months. Did you actually have to prepare to be able to change your life that much?
So, okay, I guess a couple of things. Like from a technical point of view, there was let's go and get qualified so that we have our skipper's license and we can actually legally sort of run a boat in the Med. No, surprisingly easy. Easier, I would say, than I was going to say easier than driving a car. Maybe not, but you go through it in the course of, there's a 1-week theory course and then there's a 1-week practical course. And your driving test, you might do lessons over the course of 6 months or so, and then go and sit a test. And it was 2 weeks and then job done. So it was intensive, but I think you could figure it out. Then there was the boat purchase side of things. I don't know. I mean, I guess when you were buying a camper van, RV, motorhome, I
call it a motorhome.
Okay.
There's not very much there's no very definition that I've found, but
really, you have the driving, it's all the same vehicle, isn't it?
Or one vehicle.
You don't tow anything.
No, we don't tow anything. No, it's a motorhome for us.
Motorhome. Okay. So I don't know what the market was like for them when you guys bought. We bought pre-COVID. The market since then went crazy, and now the waiting list is doubled. But even then, there was probably about a 12-month waiting list for the boat, which was why it took us that kind of 12-month window. So that kind of set the deadline for us. We sold our house. It's pretty straightforward. I think the biggest thing was getting the business to a place where we felt like we could go away. We had a small team. We didn't grow the team massively to leave, but we definitely needed to change some aspects of the business, how it operated, how we ran things, so that we felt comfortable stepping away. Property, I guess a big part of it, project management, sourcing, like the stuff you need to be on the ground for. A lot of what we do is laptop based, but there were aspects of it that we had to figure out, how can we do this without physically being in the UK? So, there was a few balls to juggle, but yeah, it was all figure outable.
Right. And so you bought the boat just to have interest.
Mm.
Obviously, being a sailor in the past, would you say anyone could do, you say an easy 2-week skipper course, if someone has never scaled before and it's a couple and they just do that 2-week skipper course, is that going to be enough are they going to be fine to go and just buy a boat out there?
I think so. I mean, we met lots of people who were in that situation. There was the boat was delivered in La Rochelle in France. There's a big factory there where our catamaran, the boat manufacturer that we bought from, launch all of their boats. Every week it's like a dozen new boats leave the factory and a dozen new families move aboard. So you're all in the marina and you're like, oh, what's your background? Where are you from? And most people were like, yeah, this is the first boat I've owned. We went and did our day skipper course and here we are. So yeah, if you're nervous, anxious, maybe charter a boat a couple of times, but there were tons of people that was their first kind of like real experience of any length of time on a boat was moving on to their own one for the first time.
Wow. Okay. Just to give some context to the motorhome side of things, right? It took you 12 months to prepare. For Jackie and I, we were sitting in the French Alps, finishing a ski season.
Mm-hmm.
We just booked tickets to go to Portugal to spend some time playing some golf over the summer. And neither of us felt 100% right about it. We were like, oh, it doesn't feel perfect. It just didn't feel 100% right. And then Jackie did a meditation and it came to her. She was just like, we should get a motorhome. And she came to me and said, I've got it. Let's do a motorhome. We literally booked the Airbnbs the day before and they were cancelable within 48 hours. And I said, yeah, go on then. We went online, found the motorhome, and literally it was a Tuesday or a Wednesday. By the Friday, we'd chosen the motorhome. We were back in the UK within a week, and then we owned it within a month from then. It was a second-hand motorhome.
Yep.
The leadership was that in the UK, like you say, COVID, it went crazy. They became like rare items. The main thing it's done is rate the price. So we bought second-hand, but there were plenty of motorhomes. For us, it was the hard thing was just finding the motorhome, because they're quite a restrictive layout, and we weren't ordering to measure, choosing our layout.
Sure.
So finding one that suited what we needed. I might go into that a bit later when we start talking about working in the environment. But for us, there were only 3 in the country we were happy with. Of all second-hand motorhomes we found, there were only 3 that were about the right price range, that were the right layout, of which one of them we like. So there were 2, and funnily enough, they ended up at 2 different dealerships right next to each other, up near Chesterfield. They were like,
yeah, I remember this.
Yeah, and so we went there. We literally just looked at both motorhomes, chose one that day, and the only thing delaying us, we would have driven away with it the next day if we could have, but because motorhomes are so popular, it wasn't as popular as it had been during COVID, but it was still highly popular. They had a month's waiting list for you to take it away so they could do their final checks and clean ups and all of that. They were like, we just can't put it into our schedule to do the final check. It took a month to wait for it just because of that. But that's it. It was basically 5 or 6 weeks from when we decided we wanted it to living in it, pretty much.
Can we just talk about that meditation piece? Like, do you talk about that much on your podcast?
We do. Okay. I think we've released one that's literally all about meditation. But yeah, we do.
Okay, I love it. And I mean, just in case any of our audience come over to listen to this, because it's not something I really do talk about, but I mentioned before we started recording, I've just got back from California. I was there on for a business conference, but a lot of it was around mindset. And I'm British, I'm cynical. I was sitting in the room and they were like, okay, we're gonna do this guided meditation, and I was like, what the, like, no, this isn't for. But I was like, I've flown here, I've taken 4 or 5 days away from my family. Let's just open my mind and go through it. And I think the word meditate, like we have a lot of preconceptions about the meaning of words, right? And people hear meditation and they're like, that's not for me. That's BS. That's spiritual. And like, it just allowed me to kind of get into my head and come up with answers to things that, you call it whatever you want, like reflection or sitting inside. Like there's nothing. There doesn't need to be anything spiritual or religious or anything like that. But it is such a powerful process just to get some clarity on what was going through my mind at that point in time. That I'm a convert, so I'm drinking the Kool-Aid, and I need to chat to you guys about that more. But for anyone who's like switches off when they hear meditation, just give it a shot. There are so many ways to get exposed to it. That, yeah, like I said, it doesn't need to be this strange experience. It can be really empowering. So I'm glad you raised that, and yeah, it's something I want to get into a bit more, I think.
Oh, brilliant to hear you say that. I'm glad you're saying that, because obviously you're quite, got quite a presence, in the property world in the UK. And you're right, meditation needs rebranding. It kind of got rebranded towards mindfulness in some ways. Like there's this whole mindfulness apps, and that was the attempted rebrand away from meditation. But it doesn't need to be anything weird. In theory, it is just you're just practicing. You're flexing a different muscle. You're practicing a different thing. And the problem is, we kind of all assume that the way our brains work and the way our thoughts happen is a necessary. It just has to be that way. But in the same way that you go to the gym and you can change the shape of your muscles, you can sit down and look inside and change how your brain is, how you're thinking, and clear the clutter. And we all sit there like beholden to the thoughts that are going through our heads. And if you just sit down and take the time and allow yourself to settle, you get so much more clarity. And that's you're right. Like suddenly inspirations, intuitions, suddenly I get some of my best ideas that way, and also biggest problem solving. Suddenly when you get clutter, you're just like, it's like, I know what to do. It's amazing. It is an amazing thing. It's just the scratching the iceberg of what we've really dived into a lot in the last 2 years. There's so much more that you can do with that use of just sitting and working inside rather than outside. But yeah, thanks for saying that, Mike. Really nice to hear. And I'm glad you're enjoying the experience. We should talk about that another time.
Our early days, but yeah, we will.
So yeah, motorhome, brilliant. It was a very quick process. Anyone wanting to do motorhoming, like it is very easy to get the motorhome. One thing I would say with the motorhome is that we had to get someone that was 3.5 tons maximum weight.
Yeah, okay.
Because we didn't want to get an HGV. We didn't want to have to get an HGV license. So we made it nice and easy. Otherwise, you have to pay like £1,000, do a 2-week course, like your skipper course, to be able to drive a heavy goods vehicle if you go over 3.5 tons. So we found that, and it's perfectly fine for our needs, which is great. So
awesome.
Yeah. So going back to you and the boat, you did that. You did your 12 months prep. You ordered your boat. You turned up in your dock in La Rochelle. You pick up your boat. How was it?
Heavier than you for a start. If we're playing, I know you've got a competitive streak, right? And you want to do the comparison, but I think our weight was something like 15 to 20 tons. So, in that regard, we're off to a good start. But yeah, it was those first weeks were just like such an experience, like just lost in the adventure. Work went out the window. And I think, that would always be, because I know you're very positive about the camper van experience. I am outwardly very positive, and generally, like we had a blast, but there were definitely some aspects of it that were challenging as well, which we can go into. But I think one of them was just trying to keep that balance between, we're doing this kind of once in a lifetime experience. We want to have this great adventure. We've got this business back home, which, there's an element of recurring income there from our rental property. But like, I was still responsible for that business. And there were times absolutely where I went too far one way or the other. I'd spent too much time working and didn't embrace what was in front of me. Or like when we first moved on the boat, I was like, this is awesome. Let's go paddleboarding every day. Let's take the dinghy for spins around the bay. Let's, go and meet all these people. And like the business, it did suffer. So those first weeks were, we'd kind of, we set aside a few weeks to just kind of be on holiday and kind of get used to living on the boat. But it was, I think, as with Yeah, well, similar to this conference with the introduction to meditation or the YouTube vlogs. Like, if you open your eyes, you just realize there are so many other people out there doing cool and interesting things, and whatever you want your life to look like, it really can. So people coming to these boats from all walks of life, from all family backgrounds, ages and stages, and they just made a decision to go and do something, and they made it work, whatever that looked like for them. So it was just a really eye-opening experience for us personally. Like, how are we going to make this work? And to see that kind of willingness to embrace life, that I think is a choice that so many people do make, but equally so many people don't make.
Yeah. I think what I see in that is most people, because again, I've heard it talk about the boat being the dream, but I can't tell you how many people have said to me, "You're living my dream life. I'm living them. Go and just sell up and go and live in a motorhome for a year. That's my dream." And I'm like, why can't you do it? And the
reason live it, yeah.
They just put, just take it from me. You don't have to put. I'm talking not to you, Mike. You've nailed this. Talk to everyone listening. You do not have to focus on what's the problem and just say that's a blockage. You can just find the solution. It's just a solution mindset. And then, oh no, okay, that's an issue. How do we solve that? That's an issue. How do we solve that? It's just man, like the way you talked about, oh, well, we just have to work out how to extract ourselves from the business. Most people would say, oh, well, we can't do it because of all these things in our business. But your mindset, Mike, clearly the right mindset for doing this life, because you were just like, oh, well, there's a few things we need to adjust. It was easy. But I'm sure you had the same problems to overcome as any other person running a property business in that respect, to be able to go live this life.
Yeah. I mean, I was going to say, do you not think that
you weren't like particularly magically set up for it?
No, we made it happen. But like you say, I think a lot of that that approach applies to a property business as well, right? It's that willingness to solve problems. Like, there are so many things that will come up on projects, on renovations, through conveyancing, refinances. Like, everything is a problem, but you can either choose to figure them out and, okay, we'll embrace it and we'll come up with a solution, and it might not be perfect, but we'll get there. Or, as you say, you let those problems become excuses. And I think, again, looking around, I always think, if anyone else has done this, then it's possible for me as well. And I'm not suggesting I could go and build Tesla and become the next Elon Musk, right? But like, if the average person, if there are people out there who, have got no more practical background, no more academic qualifications, and they've been able to build a property portfolio or go and buy a camper van or a boat and sail the world, then yeah, we can figure it out as well. And it's that willingness to figure it out. I think, like you said, it's a choice, right? Like, you can either choose to solve problems or you can choose to make excuses.
See them. Great. And I think you've led me nicely into, can you just highlight for everyone out there, what living on a boat, trying to run a business in the UK, maybe back every two or 3 months a year, what are the biggest challenges in doing that? What did you find were the biggest problems?
Well, the balance was one of them for sure. And I think that caused a lot of bit of aggro between myself and Victoria that we've processed and we've dealt with, and we're very kind of happy with the experience that we had. But there were for sure times where, like I say, trying to justify, like, well, how much time should we be working versus enjoying ourselves, and really knowing what that looked like. That was one of them for sure. I think, a lot of people say, oh, well, outside of the UK, what are you going to do about mortgage applications and things like that? I don't know if you've done this. We retained a permanent address in the UK. So, again, problem, solution, relatively simple solution. She needs to sign paperwork. Most of it can be done digitally. I had to fly back once, I think, in 4 years to physically sign something. And, it was a painful 24 hours, but it was like 200 quid on a flight and it got the job done. And yeah, so again, not a major drama. I think balance, there are other little things like Wi-Fi connections and that sort of stuff. But I think genuinely that balance and trying to keep on that line was the most difficult thing. Everything else was like logistics, basically.
And I'm going to go to logistics because I think I'm a detail guy. I like to hear these things. What, like Wi-Fi? Are you able to take calls? Are you able to do stuff when you're out in the middle of the ocean? Like, how did you manage that?
So if you're close to a marina, find your, and we spent quite a bit of time in marinas. So usually close to a town or city. And we could cope with that. You buy a SIM card. So we entered Croatia, we went and got a SIM card, and yeah, it'd be relatively affordable. France, we'd buy a new SIM card. Italy, we'd buy a new SIM card. We did laterally Starlink was really just becoming something as we were thinking about selling the boat. It was a relatively big investment, and actually after 3 years, we thought we've done okay with just a phone and a hotspot, so we don't need it. But I think things like Starlink make it infinitely more possible to be connected everywhere. We did miss out if we were at anchor or we were doing a crossing from one country to another, or even just within a country but a longer passage. We would lose Wi-Fi connection there, but you know, occasionally you'd get I need to send this email. I think if you embrace that time off, like I say, I've just been in California, and I was like, oh, there's Wi-Fi on the plane. So I paid for the Wi-Fi, and I was actually, what I like about planes is like that disconnection, sitting and reading. And then I was like, can I get a refund on this and just like disconnect it? Because sometimes having that time to not be connected is where you get the best work done, or even just shutting off and relaxing. So it's never the end of the world. I think we're all too connected. I'm certainly guilty of that. And if you've got a connection, you tend to check things. If you don't, you actually, I find you're a bit more productive. So it was never a major issue. In fact, I should have embraced it more. But worst case, we were offline for 48 hours.
On a crossing, middle of the sea.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the longest crossing we would do, I think the longest one we did was probably from the south of France down to Menorca, which was, about 2.5 days offshore. Everything else was more or less 24 hours from like the Balearics to Sardinia, from Sardinia to mainland Italy, from Italy to Croatia, all kind of certainly within 2 days, we could get from one place to another. I mean, living on a boat is slow. Like our average speed was about 5 miles an hour. So like just, going, you could cover Italy in a week, right? And we could barely get out of the heel of Italy in a week. So we needed to adjust our plans, because our first year we were like, we're going to see the world. Let's go. Let's do this. And we just went far too fast. We missed stuff. We committed to like being in certain places to meet people off flights. And we were spending so a tank of fuel on a boat was probably about 500 euros. We could get through that pretty quickly if the wind wasn't in the right direction. So we kind of forced the agenda in that first year. We were chasing our tails to meet deadlines that we had kind of imposed upon ourselves for holiday commitments with other people and things like that. And that created a lot of stress in itself, just trying to do too much. So again, we got used to it. After that first year, our plans totally changed. Actually, it was I was going to say it's kind of nice. Obviously, nothing COVID related is nice, but nobody could come and see us in that second year. So it was just Victoria and I on the boat thinking, where will we go today? Nowhere. Let's just stay here because it's beautiful and the weather's great. So we slowed down a heck of a lot in that second year. It was a totally different experience. We didn't see half as much, but we saw a lot more at the same time. So, it was very detail focused versus like big picture in that first year.
I would echo a lot of that on the motorhome route. By the way, we had to learn that you just take your time and don't try and fit loads in, because it's hard enough. Like with the lifestyle you're leading, there's a few extra things to do. You've got to be getting to dock to for us to fill up water, empty the toilet. So you've got to have certain stop off points. And what we found, especially working around it, was we would just know that during the week, if we have meetings and work days, just don't try and do much, right? Just, you don't need to get and see parts of the country. Just take your time. We tend to travel just out of interest, just to like keep it interesting. But we'd be parked up for a night, and then we'd say, okay, let's just go and do a half-hour tomorrow drive in the morning to get just to a new vantage point. The biggest concern for us was always, if we travel somewhere new, what's the internet situation at that point? So we always had to leave enough time. Always have to leave enough time to make sure when we get there, we double check the internet, say, is it good? Because we're on SIM cards as well. What's the 4G like? And then as long as it's good enough, it just gives us another different view. But really, it's a matter for us of saying, take it slow and don't. And then it's hard enough life without also saying every single weekend you're in a new place. On holiday, you often think to yourself, well, I've turned up at this location. I need to go and see it all. I need to get in that city. I need to get all around it. I need to do the sites, do all the tourist things, whatever it might be. And for us, it's a matter of saying, well, it doesn't matter where we are in the world. I cannot do that every freaking weekend.
Yeah.
Like that's it's just not possible. So we've accepted in our lives that it's just like for us, it was a matter of being in amazing places.
Yeah.
Hootling around. You turn up a cool city and you might pop in just to see what it's like, get the vibe, have a meal, but it's not like a weekend's tourist activities. It's just like, let's just see what that city's like tonight. And sometimes you might not even do that. We'll just turn up near a city and say, screw it, I'm too worn out to go into that city. Can't be bothered. Because actually, that's not what it's about. You've got to take life a little easier.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, my favorite places were where we ended up spending a couple of weeks, or we would go back to repeatedly. There's one place in mind in particular. I guess, I mean, by boat it's relatively far, but Trogir. I don't know if you ever made it to Trogir in Croatia. Further north, near Split. Anyway, there was a really convenient, well-priced marina there. It was handy for visiting all of the islands, so we would quite regularly go back there. And it was my favorite, one of my favorite places across the 4 years. Another one being Palma for similar reasons. It was well located in the Balearics to get to Ibiza and Menorca, and we would regularly cross through it. And we came familiar with these places, and you didn't feel like you needed to rush or go. For the favorite parts of that for me were like, you'd discover little coffee shops that were a great place just to go and hang out and people watching, just like live that kind of local life rather than constantly being that tourist. So the more we slowed down, the more I enjoyed it for sure.
It's amazing. So it's very similar, like that feeling from my perspective, amazing. So just going down that route, actually, what would you say have been the biggest upsides of living this life? Like what have you learned from it or been able to experience from it that you could never have had without living on the boat?
Well, if I start, I suppose, with the business side of things, because that's part of the reason people are listening to this. The old maxim that the only way you really know if you've got a business versus a job is to step away from it and see if it continues to operate, right? So having that opportunity to identify those gaps in our business, see where the team and the processes and the portfolio were kind of self-sufficient, and see where things started to fall apart. That was a great eye-opener for us, and has meant that coming back now, I've got a very clear idea of where our business can go, where it needs improvement or additional support. What the strengths and weaknesses are of myself and the business overall. So as just a lot of us think we've got businesses. Most of us probably don't. We do just have that job, right? That as soon as we stop working, the wheels start to fall off. So that was really advantageous to get that insight into our business, and really powerful for the future that we want to build for it. I think spending, Victoria and I spend a lot of time together. Like we moved in together 6 months after we started dating. We've lived together consistently. We have worked together. We met at work. Then we built the business together. We've spent a lot of time together, but actually, again, kind of changing that environment, I think, was great for the relationship, and having that new challenge and not just taking our life together for granted, but actually like kind of proactively focusing on this adventure, I think was really nice. And like I say, we had some arguments along the way, full disclosure. There were some tense times. But yeah, I mean, I think just the fact that we will always have those memories, like I'm not going to look back and be grateful for, oh yeah, I really remember that HMO. That was a highlight of my life. Like, no, it's what that enables. And, I think to set goals around not just like, okay, I want this level of income, or I want this number of properties, which is a totally irrelevant goal anyway. But why are we doing all of this stuff? It might not be adventure, right? It could be so that you can there's some greater purpose, there's some cause that you want to help, there's family that you want to support, there's other opportunities that you want to pursue, or there are maybe adventures that you want to go on. And I think just kind of being able to use that business and that portfolio to actually like live our reason why, I think was super powerful, and it kind of helped us, yeah, and in a whole bunch of ways, just see what the next stage looks like. And I think just help us realize that you can do whatever you want. Life can be whatever you want it to be.
That's amazing. I would say, listening to you there, I really resonate with this concept of it not being, it takes you away from the business. And I don't know if you found this, but for me, stepping off of UK soil, it's one of the reasons Jackie and I travel so much, is because stepping away from the UK soil, where the business is located and where all the properties are and it's all happening, it almost helps me to find a greater perspective, to put the business in its perspective within my greater life. And I look at my life and I said, that's what it's all about. And the business is just an enabling function. And actually, the problems of the business are just something for me to deal with. And it's not really an issue, really. It's just the next challenge of the business to enable what for us is our choice of freedom and travel and adventure, having an awesome time, being happy, being joyful. That's what we're in it for. I found that when we were just in the UK, just around the investment location there all the time, it's almost like the business, it grows in your mind. It's like it's all around you, and it's like you can't get away from it somehow, mentally, headspace wise. It's there, and it fills you too much. And I found that travel broke us away from that. We always say that when we started traveling full time, it just taught us how to be free somehow. We couldn't do it until we did it. We didn't know what freedom was, and it gave us that moment of going, oh, wow, this is what it's all about. It was a realization moment. And you're right, like the perspective of it is massive. And the relationship as well. I think we've had the same thing. Like, people ask me, how the hell do you, well, our motorhome's a lot smaller than your boat, a heck of a lot smaller. And people are like, how do you live together and work together in that? And one of the things we required layout wise in our motorhome was a door. We needed a door.
Yeah.
Between the back and the front, so that we could have two different spaces. Now, that's primarily for work reasons, but it also does create two separate spaces. So if you're not able to go outside, you have got two zones, and that separation was all we needed to kind of create our own space. But it has forced us to really learn the next level of working together in an environment that is very close and intimate. And you dive the next level down of like what arguments come up, what problems come up, what challenges come up. And if you solve those challenges, you get to a new level of relationship, a better level, that if you were just living your same life in a house with all this space and able to just easily keep away from each other as much as you want, you don't ever have to confront.
Yeah.
And for us, it's like, yeah, great. Bring the challenges on. Like the same as every challenge is a chance to evolve, a chance to become, a better version of yourself. And more importantly, with the relationship, a chance to make the relationship stronger and better. Because as long as you look at it like that, you're able to evolve it to a better place so it can last and deal better. And actually for us, like it just creates more happiness. We're just happier.
That's great.
Happy.
Yeah.
Crazy, right? So look, I'm aware of time. I want to get on to like, I want to ask you one major difference between the boat and the motorhome, right? Cost.
Yeah. I don't know if I'm ready to talk about this yet, David. It's a punchy subject, the cost of running and living on a boat. What do you want to know? Or you just want the full shebang?
I know you don't have to do the full whack. It's whatever you want to like share. I know it's a lot more expensive than what we've done. So I know, for example, docking, like marine, how much are they generally? Like, what are you paying to put more up?
It varied massively. In the UK, on Victoria's dad's monohull, we would go into a marina in, Wales somewhere, and it would be like 20 quid a night. And he'd be like, that's expensive. So we had this belief that, for us, catamaran, two hulls, twice as wide, it might be 40 quid a night, right? And this was like, do your research, but more an issue on our part for not really figuring that out first. But we sailed from La Rochelle down the coast of Portugal into Gibraltar, and the first place we came to was Sota Grande, which is this nice little kind of new build community with a marina right down the south of Spain. And we went in there, and it was 78 euros per night, and we were like, ooh, we can't hang around here for too long. That was the cheapest marina that we came across the entire time that we were in the Med. It just got worse and worse and worse from there. the two most expensive places we went into. One of them was Amalfi on the Amalfi Coast, obviously, and the other one was Portofino. So Italy, both Italy. And I'm trying to remember something like maybe, and this is just to park your boat, right? Something like 300 or 400 euros per night.
Oh,
Now there were places that we didn't go because they were even more expensive. Capri, just off the Amalfi Coast, I think was about 2 grand a night. And so I mean places we avoided, but yeah, you could spend a lot of money in marinas. If it was less than like, kind of 100 euros a night, we were pretty happy with that. So we had to spend a lot of time at anchor and kind of pick wisely. I don't know how RV motorhome parks, or whatever you call them, caravan parks places. Like I guess there's some places you can wild camp. Do you do much of that? And like you just kind of
yeah, yeah. Well, first, just to finish off, just to clarify, you either stay in the marina or you just weigh up anchor, right?
If the weather's okay, right?
Okay, so that if the weather is the major factor, and if you weigh up anchor, it's for free. You just weigh up just off the coast anywhere.
In 95%, 99% of places it's free. Yeah, there's a few national parks where you'd pay like £15 a night or something like that, but that was rare.
Could you have done that like 2 out of 3 nights if the weather was good enough?
Oh yeah, if the weather was good enough, yeah. I mean, we would need to go into marina probably once a week. Now we have a lot of storage space. We have big storage tanks. So for water and for waste, we could cope for about a week without
Right.
going into a marina. We had solar panels and a generator, so like we could be relatively off grid. And a lot of people will even do longer than that, and they'll take their dinghy in and they'll go to the supermarket and that. But yeah, we would probably go in, like the least we would do would be about once a week, and we'd spend a night or two, reset, refresh, and then head back out again. Sometimes we spent a lot more than that in marinas, though.
You do have the option. So from our perspective, wild camping, yes, for us, that is the magic of the motorhome.
Mm-hmm.
The going into a campsite thing or RV park is the moment that we generally want to avoid at all costs, because the joy for us of the motorhome is the freedom, and you just get the best views, the best locations, the best feeling and vibe. You're just out in the middle of nowhere. You just park up. I always remember parking up for 3 nights. It was meant to be one night, but we went up three in the middle of the desert in Spain, where in a place where they used to film the westerns,
Okay.
old western, and it's literally it was the incredible landscape. No one around. We just
Mm-hmm.
driven off a track for 45 minutes off the main road in the middle of nowhere. You park up, and one night we did an open air cinema. I had a projector in there. We're just sitting there,
Nice.
all of can't see a single soul. Stars are amazing. That's for me. That's what it's all about. And then we go into campsites if you absolutely have to. Campsites generally range in Europe. They're usually around 15 to 20 euros a night.
Okay.
In England, it's more like 30 quid a night, but they're much worse. And we avoid them at all costs. For us, a campsite is not a place to go unless you absolutely have to.
Yeah.
Amazingly, on Europe, like we can probably last about 3 days before we have to empty and fill water. So it's a bit shorter than yours, but there are so many places. Spain was amazing. France is good. Italy's very good. Places where you can fill water for free,
Mm-hmm.
empty your toilet, empty your waste, and it's just easy. And so we have an app. Anyone considering this? An app called Park for Night. It is our Bible. It's our location Bible. You just literally, we look on there every day. We never know where we're going, and that's been another for us a massive benefit. Learning to just not make plans and just allow life to show you where to go next. We just look at the app and go, oh, where do you want to go tomorrow? And you just choose the next location on there. And it's people just saying where they've stayed, and they just choose. You just look at the pictures and the reviews like Airbnb, but for free parking spots. And I can't tell you how many, the best locations, right on the sea, right
Yeah.
on Lake Como, in the middle of the mountains, just amazing locations and for free. So we love a good deal. And as far as I'm concerned, free nights is the best deal you can have
Yeah.
on
Perfect.
those. So yeah, we keep the cost down. So you've got the marinas. That's quite a high cost if you stay in them. I know you spoke to me about insurance.
Mm-hmm.
When about what's the insurance on a job like
Oh,
that?
I don't even remember now, but it was not cheap. I mean, the major costs for us. So the boat itself, a new, and this was probably like the smallest kind of production catamaran. It was 40 foot. Most, like, so we had a Fontainebleau, there were lagoons, there were a couple of other kind of, like, I'm trying to think, like Katana, a couple of other kind of it's like, you know, buying a Volvo or you know, it's not a Porsche. It's definitely like a kind of production run of the mill, like Ford, whatever. Um, so for that entry level, it cost us about 400 grand or something like that. Now we had finance on that. We didn't buy it cash. But you know, you're looking at probably like 50% loan to value versus a buy to let or a residential mortgage. And you're looking at kind of closer to bridging interest rates than, you know, residential mortgage. So like our boat payments were all in, you know, just for the boat, for insurance, marina fees, fuel, we could probably be spending 4 or 5 grand a month. It's punchy. It's a lot of money, for sure. And, you know, probably 50% of that or so, I guess, was on the actual finance payment. So if you were buying something cash or buying secondhand, you know, you could reduce that significantly. A lot of people were living on much tighter budgets than we were. They were living on smaller boats or older boats. They weren't going into marinas as often. Like, there are absolutely levels that you can, you know, there are ways that you can do it on a budget. A lot of people move onto a boat because it's cheaper than having your own home. And but you know, that was the reality for us. And that was, you know, an obligation that we had to meet every month. And you know, it kept us on our toes, like, okay, well, the business needs to keep going because we got to pay the bills. But you know, it was a great experience. It was a whole lot of fun. So you know, we knew going into it was going to be an expensive couple of years, but you know, we, like I say, we had a lot of fun. So I think it was a worthwhile memory making time.
Amazing. Okay, so I'm just gonna, on our side, motorhome, right? I definitely can beat you on this one for sure. We could do up to 100% loan to value purchase.
Okay.
We only did 5%, but we could have gone to 100.
Yeah.
And we bought for about 60 grand, all in, but 95% loan to value. We then had to put a few extras on top of that, just like solar panels had to be on top of that. And we are on a 10-year payment plan. I think our monthly cost is roughly £600
Okay.
for the motor itself.
Yeah.
Insurance is about £500 a year for us.
Yep.
and other than that, it is literally just the campsite. So
yeah,
it's for us. It's the opposite of you. Motorhome life is actually a cheaper lifestyle. It's actually much cheaper than it was when we were living in a flat. So, which is one of the joys for us. It makes us feel very, very rich and abundant when you're not actually spending that much on that. Actually, was one of the big learnings for us when we went to a motorhome. We were spending less than we were before, and suddenly we had excess cash around us. We felt way richer, even though we had the same amount of money. And we're like, oh my God, feels amazing. And because we felt better, business went better.
Yep.
Because we felt like we had more money. And so actually more money comes in, and actually we're doing better in business because of it, just because we don't feel tight anymore. So that was a big learning for us. So just final things from you. I'd love to know, just to clarify for everyone listening, you, Mike, you were carried on through the 4 years on the boat. You're still buying properties. You're doing, what type of projects are you doing mostly from the boat?
So mainly commercial to resi conversions, you know, turning an office into either a large HMO or maybe 3 or 4 flats with a shop underneath it, you know, a variety of stuff, but we're not talking like hundreds of units, but we're not buying like terraced houses. It was kind of, you know, 300-400 square meter commercial buildings that we would convert into some sort of residential use.
So fairly decent chunky size projects. You're right, not like, but no, not small fry, and you're managing that perfectly fine from your boat. You've got a project manager on site. Are you like team?
So yeah, we the core team, I suppose, was a project manager who was looking after day to day on site, property manager who was looking after. So we manage our lettings in house. So all of our portfolio is run as a letting agency business, but it's kind of owned and controlled by us, and more or less only looks after our own portfolio. And then a VA in the Philippines who did a lot of the admin type stuff for us. And then I was still working. I was very much still working whilst I was on the boat. For me, it was more about location freedom. I didn't see the need to be in Stockport where we invest day in, day out. So we were like, okay, I'm going to keep working. I don't want to retire, but let's go and do it from somewhere a little bit warmer. It did work. there were some issues with it for sure. You know, we overcame a lot of them. You know, with growth become, you know, you identify new problems. I would say our business was sustained over those 4 years rather than like growing exponentially. So we were able to keep the projects going. We did, you know, 2-3 projects a year at any point in time. And yeah, it did work well, but coming back and thinking, like reflecting, I'm like, we could have done more, were we in the UK? But it's not all about growth, right? It's about that balance. We grew enough with those new projects that I think on reflection, having that combination of slower growth with much more personal enjoyment, fulfillment, satisfaction was a really good balance to strike.
Awesome. Nail on the head there, Mike. Love that. I totally agree with that. It's just balancing lifestyle versus growth. And it sounds like you did it perfectly. Your biggest advice for anyone considering this lifestyle?
Just do it. There will be problems, you know. No, we spoke about this. Like there's always gonna be an excuse not to do it. Oh, my kids are too young, my kids are too old, we don't have kids, we've got too many kids, my parents, my partner, now, you know, I suppose the family thing is a consideration, right? Like I do not have an answer to if you're really passionate about this and your spouse isn't. I don't know how you deal with that. A good friend of mine is she's just announced a sabbatical. She's going away for 3 months, January to March, doing this like backcountry skiing thing, and she's leaving her partner back home. Fair enough. Good for you. But, you know, I don't want to cause any relationship dramas. So that's maybe something you need to address. But like, if there's that desire, like there's no reason not to do it. As said before, you know, everything is figure outable. There's a solution. Plenty of people dumber than you, poorer than you, you know, less adventurous than you have gone on and done these things in the past. So if they can do it, you can. The only thing that is stopping you is what's in your head. So yeah, just don't believe your own excuses. Just if you genuinely want to do it, and you know, a lot of people say they want to do it, but I don't think they do. But if you genuinely want to do it, there is nothing that is stopping you. It might be, you know, it might be let's go and buy a smaller boat versus dropping $5,000 a month. It might be let's stay on land because I get seasick. But there is something out there that works for you. And like I say, you know, the only thing that will stop you from doing it is the story you tell yourself in your head. So don't listen to it. Don't let that hold you back.
Amazing advice. I literally couldn't add anything else to that, Mike. That's exactly word for word. I'd take that answer to that question as well. So we come to the end. You are obviously, you're doing property. You're obviously a mentor as well. You help other people. Do you want to just say a little bit, if anyone listening to this is loving how you sound, loves the sound of how you live life? What is it how do you help people?
I mean, I was going to suggest the podcast is probably a good place to find out more about us, but we are, like I said at the start, you know, a little behind with where we should be on that. But we've been doing this for 15 years now. We help people with a couple of things, I suppose. 3 things I would say if people are looking for assistance with growing an HMO portfolio, we can absolutely help with that. It's what allowed us to quit the corporate life, and kind of that's what funded our adventures was our HMO portfolio. There are a couple of things that probably overlap with you a little bit, David. So like you know, I think we probably both come about them in different ways, but one of them is helping people raise finance to grow the portfolio. And then the third thing is when people are at a stage where they've got this business, but it feels like the business is running them and they want to create a bit more of a business that works for them rather than them working for the business. We have a very small mastermind group to help people kind of go through that transformation from, you know, kind of around about 10K a month to like, you know, working 60 hours a week to growing your portfolio, but reducing your hours quite considerably. So yeah, I guess they're the 3 major things. 2 of them for more experienced investors, raising capital and bringing more freedom back into that business. And then the other one is the HMO for newer investors, which I think is a great place to start. Some people disagree with that, but I absolutely think HMOs can be a starting point into the world of property, and a very profitable one.
And I add to that right now with interest rates where they are, the way we see it with our clients and mentees is HMOs are they're very good cash flowing strategy to overcome the high interest rates. Most of our successful mentees right now are the ones doing the HMOs because they're just able to make it work where single lets just cannot at this moment in time. So yeah, brilliant. Yes, it does overlap with us, Mike, but as far as I'm concerned, we probably work in very different ways, and the right people end up with the right people. You know, the right
Absolutely.
person who's resonates with you, who likes how you sound, who's interested in how you work and help your mentees will end up with you. Those who like how I sound and Jackie sounds and like how we work with our guys, no, it's very different. Will end up with us. So yeah.
And if I could just say one thing on that, a lot of the members of our mastermind group work with you on the name of it.
Portfolio cash flow optimizer service.
I was going to say cash flow accelerator, but yeah, that very catchy title of your portfolio cash flow optimizer service. And every time somebody else tells me, "Oh yeah, I've booked in a call with David, or I've had my first session with David," I'm just like, fantastic, because there are so many pieces to this puzzle, and what you do for them, the clarity and the insights that they get. First of all, for their own business, I think it's a great step in the direction. And I feel as a guide, it's about giving them all of these different options to go and explore. But then the value they bring back to our group as well, because the insights that you've got, like, I think there's this massive pool of knowledge that we can all share and kind of help each. There's not competition, right? Like the property market in the UK is screwed. There's a lot of work that needs to be done to fix that by building more houses, creating homes for people to live. So if we can all kind of work together to play some small part in that, then I think it elevates us all. So no, anytime somebody says, "Oh yeah, I've had a chat with Jackie and David," I'm like, yeah, fantastic, crack on, because like you say, we do things in different ways, and I think it can all work together really well.
So true. Well, thank you so much for your time, Mike. It's been an absolute pleasure having you. We've definitely overrun on what I imagined, but there's so much to talk about with hearing how it is living on life on the boat. And I don't think there's a winner, to be honest with you. I think there's pros and cons. Clearly, if you've got less money to spend, the motorhome might be the way. If you've got a bit more budget to work with, maybe the boat's the way. But regardless, I think they both it feels like a very similar internal experience of this kind of living a different life, freedom. It's fantastic to hear you talk about it. And thank you so much for your time and knowledge.
Thanks for having me.
Awesome. I hope you loved listening to that episode as much as those guys enjoyed recording it. If you want to connect with Mike and find out more about what he does, you can check him out at insidepropertyinvesting.com. The link to that will also be in the show notes. If you've enjoyed this episode, then you can find out more of the background to the approach that Dave and I have taken in terms of the strategy behind how we've scaled up our property business and the fundamentals we've put in place. Check out episode number 5, which is all about finding focus in the sea of shiny pennies. So what that business strategy really means in property. And next week on the show, you'll have Dave again, but he'll also be joined by Dom. And those guys are talking about change. How can you embrace the discomfort that change brings in order to fast track the growth of your property business? So a really amazing episode with a very different angle on things that I think you're really going to love. So that's the same time next week on Friday, and we look forward to seeing you then. So until then, have a great week ahead.